Hello, welcome to the Physics of Ultimate Power. I am your host, Kurt. Today we're going to go through the physics of ultimate power. And so this is going to be fundamentally how to see and notice if you are doing something correctly. Right, so this isn't doing anything correctly. This has like no practical value in terms of like doing anything correctly. It's how to look at and see if you're doing something correctly rather than an idea of being correct, right? Which is you're going to do something correctly, you have to be going towards the idea of being correct. But what you're doing isn't the idea of being correct. So you have to learn to look at and feel what you're doing and to see and notice and understand if that's like coherent or not, and understand the possibilities of like what you're doing to change, right? Understanding the possibilities of what you're doing to change is the basis of just like movement. So this is broadly the most general exercise practice. So I'm gonna use the heavy bag just because I don't have a partner, so I get to interact with somebody in an interesting way, and the trampoline really, these reactive things. So this is gonna look like the closest container that this is going to be to is going to be kind of like martial arts and stuff, right? So this is going to be like how to generate tremendous, I mean, like really look at what's going on in the actual punch without the abstraction. And to some people, like if you can't mentally hang with me, the more that you talk about what's actually happening, like the more abstract it kind of gets in a certain way. And then, but like if you continue to talk accurately about what's happening, even though it's getting more and more and more and more and more abstract, the technique there is to cause it to just overload the brain and the abstractions collapse. Okay, so the technique for cueing this is basically what people just call mind blow. It's like a little bit of a reorientation, or it's like slamming your head with common sense. It just makes it causes the rationalizing mind to collapse, right? So there's kind of a jujitsu involved with it, and so like a good teacher can do this to a lot of people at the same time, right? This comedians, the technique of talking about this is inherently comedic. It's the exact same thing as comedic. Comedics do it the absolute hardest, right? But it's that skill is connecting what's actually happening to the rationalization of the discursive thought thinking, which people call truth. And if you just continue to keep it connected, it'll eventually overload the mind, because it starts to create things that are impossible not to believe. And then once you get enough things that are impossible not to believe and they're contradictory, like paradox, like you basically get somebody believing two things at the same time. Right, so like a comedian or whatever with a joke, they'll have the collective, the belief of the person or persons. There'll be a collective belief, and if the comedian sets up a story in such a way that everyone thinks or believes the exact opposite of what they truly believe, you'll get a laugh or a mental collapse. But both people have to you have to really, really believe it. So if you can get so comedians would be like, okay, I know everybody doesn't want to be racist, and then they'll make it so that the person laughs at or appreciates. If you get the subject to do something cute or clever, or there's any sort of admiration towards the thing, if you can get people to admire just a little bit that which they hate, or hate that which they love, you'll get you get the collapse. And so the easiest way is just to do the sick or twisted or perverted humor, dead baby jokes, stuff like that. That's the lowest IQ of this skill, right? And so this skill, if you're able to look at what's actually happening and respond to that, is how you know what to say and when to say it, because you're kind of like you're listening to reality and connecting that to what you say, and it makes you witty, adept, skillful in conversation. Right? Like what I'm talking about is completely like natural. right? Everyone does things correctly, right? So everybody knows how to do things correctly. Like what I'm saying isn't something that everyone isn't, are already doing. It's just, are you doing it consciously, right? And it's the same as like we just we eat food like all the animals, but if we look at it and do it constantly, like we develop farming or fasting, nutritional diets, right? So the same way that you can look at some automatic animalistic trait like eating or thinking or moving, you can look at it and focus on it, and then these abilities kind of flourish out of it. So that's kind of the why. So you're trying to align with what's happening, right? So the best way to break that down really easy is like, what do we know is happening? I know that there's like at least 100-something pounds of water in my body, right? So I want to be constantly feeling that, and then I want to know, what are the limitations and the rules of water? Like, how can water move, and what happens when it undergoes different forces, right? You'll find that water waves. How does it wave? It waves only when it all goes together and kind of rolls, does it wave. Or what happens when it does this? If it comes out of sequence, the water will separate, right? So then you get two different objects. Water that's connected as one object basically conducts waves like an object, so it moves uniformly. And then if you can separate the water, or if the water gets separated, right? If you get scared or something like causes there to be a split in the water, it can't operate as a single unit. So then you've got two things to do. Things get more and more complex. Things get more and more complicated, right? So with this, we're just really trying to focus on what's correct. This, like, as you dig into this stuff mentally, you can get very distracted. So what are we doing? We're doing how to do things correctly, right? So I just want to stick my arms out and bring them back in. What is correct? Okay, let's say I just want to put my arms out and bring them back in. What does it mean to do that correctly? So it's to know and feel what you are, which is this bag of water, this gelatinous skeleton type thing, immersed in a field of consciousness. Or like you're immersed in this field of perception. You know it's just perception. You know this is all in your mind. It's a field. It's a single frequency, right? So all it means for this to be a single frequency is that it's connected via a medium or a field. And so that field around you, that's one coherent field, the room. The other coherent field is you, right? So your field of like, oh, there's my body. There's my body. And then when I punch or kick or move, I have a coherent field. I'm everywhere simultaneously, right? There's a superposition. There's a superposition of me throughout my entire self when I'm doing something correctly. And that's just called being mindful. And so that's when somebody's mindful on that level, they're just athletic. They don't look goofy when they do something. They train for sports, and it's just kind of there. If somebody isn't mindful and their field is broken, there's all sorts of different pieces that have to be like coached back into a single whole. That's all anybody's doing when they're coaching is they're saying this part isn't responding to that part. And like if it's in a fight, it goes, you consider the other person a part of yourself, and you connect and respond to it the exact same way that your left and your right hand responds to each other, right? Like if I say dodge, these are just in superposition responding. So with the martial art thing, or doing that correctly, you're just responding to the other person. the same way that your right hand responds to the left hand. And so how is that happening? You are in superposition, filling all the space in the medium that is your body and connecting via like a non-local, everywhere at once feel the totality of your body presence. And then you have to maintain that feeling. When you have that, you basically have like a field of awareness that as you rotate it, you're rotating it through this outer field, right? The outer space here. Like if you were going to spin or do a cartwheel, right? You can invert. The more that you feel your body, this outer field here that you're moving through is happening in your body as well. Okay, so just to admit that your perception is something going on with your sense organs, right? And this image that you have of your body is being constructed somehow in the body, in the sense organs. As you feel yourself more, right? Like if you're actually doing that, you're feeling yourself more. Well, you're feeling yourself more. That means you start feeling the space more because the space is in you. And so as you feel that space more, it becomes a medium that's denser and denser and denser, just like your body. And you can, you basically get support and float in the air, in the medium, enough to do acrobatics or enough to do the activity that you're doing. Like it's hard for me to go totally upside down because I don't practice it very much. But I know exactly where I'm doing it correctly or not if I wanted to do it. And so correct means I'm just doing it as one piece. I'm doing it in one coherent field, and I'm doing that with more and more and more focuses. And as I practice keeping that focus in the strenuous position, like upside down, under attack, under duress, as I focus on keeping my field in position, then I become, in those positions, I feel as floated and as casual and effortless as I do in this position, which I practice. Right? This position right here only feels the way it does because I've practiced being present in it, and so I'm nearly weightless. I can do all sorts of things. I haven't practiced being present in this position, and so the water basically gets pulled on too quick, and my arms separate from my back, or my upper back separates from the lower, and my legs. I can't maintain the position for very long, but I can feel, and just practice staying unbroken. And so I let that unbroken limit, that becomes the limit of the exercise. That's your range of motion. Like maybe you could do, maybe I could hold like a really staticky handstand if I tried over and over, and I could measure it and extend it to 20 minutes, and it still might be just a juggling act of balancing two parts and just practicing and actually never experiencing the unification of the body or the correct movement. So the different parts are all the different limbs, but also the mind can become separated from the body, or the heart can become separated, and that just means that the water has split, and so I'm not operating as a single body of water. So with the trampoline, it kind of makes it so I can feel I have a single thing going up and down, right? If I can feel my fluidic mass all rising, falling at the same time. It's what would the correct movement to be? I don't want to break that feeling of a single event happening. So how can I move where all the water stays together versus like, oh, there, like my hand just left it's kind of two things happening. So the trampoline lets you feel that and what's the range of motion and maintain single body fluid dynamics, we'll call it. And so once you realize that you're able to like do things correctly and that you already understand the effortless, weightless posture that you're supposed to have, like doing a handstand, because you can walk, everyone's at nearly the same skill level. This is no harder than any other position. This just has the right mental effort. Like the way that you walk has the right mental effort. And so you can get to any posture, any position can be developed at that low intensity, right mental effort as like just stepping. And you don't want to like keep, jumping through things. You want to feel, you want to just maintain your awareness or your correctness the whole time, and that maintains the density of space the whole time. So you feel free and floaty and everything just like you do right here. Like this isn't easy because it's walking, it's easy because you've mastered this posture. So you already know a position of physical mastery, right? All of this stuff is like super basic. People have that physical mastery. They just focus on the idea of what's being better rather than what's actually going on. And so the physical mastery is not expanded. Difficulty is just undertaken or pursued, like just going in a direction no matter what without moving the actuality. Yada, yada, yada. People say the same thing over and over and over. But each time fresh and new, right? And really it is every time, like, whoa. So the trampoline like opens up and like basically slows down your movement, so it actually makes it harder for you to lose that fluidic posture because the fluid wants to jump, it wants to rebound. So without the trampoline, to keep my water in as much motion and awareness as I can do on the trampoline, it's pretty hard. Yeah, the trampoline is doing kind of an energetic equivalent of being in a deep squat, except like it's adding like that much. Just the way that fins add propulsion to your kick, the trampoline is adding some propulsion to your effort. So I think that's why they're such cool exercise machines. Just because they open up, they make Tai Chi and fluidic awareness like super easy. Stuff that's normally like subtle and requires like a super refined nervous system. The effects and the techniques become so big and so long and so easy to spot that just like almost anybody that gets on a rebounder and does very much work starts moving in accordance with those truths or with those techniques that you would see from having good physical vision. So I want to put my hands out. What is correct? Just keeping it all as one. So not so that there's an out movement and an up movement, right? That's two, even though I'm like one thing. If there's up and out, it's the whole There's an entirely different feel if the movement doesn't separate or pull the water of the body apart mechanically. Could be holding 20s or whatever, 45s would be pretty cool. We'll have to start making like sturdier trampolines for like big boy weightlifters who want to bounce with like 50s. But yeah, it just opens up the window. Whatever your lift is, you can see. If you do it on a trampoline, it makes the impulse or the electricity, the force from the ground, becomes slow enough and drawn out enough that you can way more easily analyze like your body mechanics of anything. Because what you're doing is this. So when the trampoline starts to expand and slow your dump down slowly, this is longer and more drawn out and easier to see. So proprioceptively, mechanically, trampolines make grounding easier to see, so you can ground your whole body, and that's what generates the lift. And so this is like the same way that kicking generates thrust, grounding generates the lift, and so the trampoline is the same as putting fins on for lift. And so the whole body is lifted, so gravitationally every part of the body kind of has the equivalent of fins. So you can learn to move and do stuff that would normally feel like you were just slipping through water, flailing. The trampoline makes the whole grounding force, which is kind of what you're doing with your feet, but you're doing it with your whole body all the time. And so you can make it, you can see that grounding force. And then you know, part of being correct is staying aligned with the grounding force. And that takes you back into like hitting, because if you stay aligned with the grounding force, the impact is interesting to calculate. Okay, so now we'll go. Oh, I had little tiny weights the whole time. Now we'll go and hit the heavy bag, and we'll use it to explore correctness. So what does it mean to be correct?